Hi, everybody. This is Kathleen Dorsey. We are here, and I'm going to be doing this once a month. I'm going to be interviewing members of Collective Wisdom, a masterminds group and program that I offer through Collective Wisdom. So today we have Gary Thorn, and Gary Thorn is going to tell us about his business, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about just him in general. And so we can get an idea and maybe learn from Gary a little bit as well. So welcome, Gary, to our first, you are our first interviewee, our first victim. So
Thanks for
this,
having me.
yeah, this is a new initiative that we're doing for Collective Wisdom. We're going to highlight our members as well as share some good knowledge and education. So thanks for doing this with us. So first, tell us about your business. What's the name and how did it come about?
So the name is kind of a fun story. Originally, this had started out at the beginning of last year. Um, I was working as a government contractor for a company called Quotient. I've spent my career bouncing back and forth between contracts and government work, enterprise work, and being owning my own businesses. While working there, I was kind of talking to one of the people who were partnered in the company, and they had mentioned like, oh, I was like, oh yeah, I'll get back to business one day. He's like, do it or don't. You don't get to just talk about one day doing it. Either you're doing it or you're not. So when I was kind of challenged in that way, I started thinking about how I would approach it again. Um, and I started thinking of names. Originally, the first name that I came up with that I really liked, there was a brainstorming session with me and my account manager, Ashley Dodson. And we tried a lot of adjectives. We tried, it was probably dozens of different names, many whiteboards. We both are members of the Baltimore music community. And the first thing that we came up with was strike up the brand, kind of like strike up the
Nice.
brand, strike
Yeah.
up the band.
Yeah.
Um, it was a it was maybe a month after that when we both had the concept like strike's kind of a strong word and not everybody's going to necessarily get the reference. Up the brand could be a parent brand for a lot of other adjectives, because then from up the brand you could go to build up the brand for the construction industry, teach up the brand for teachers, sell up the brand for e-commerce. um, so it was kind of an aha moment once we figured that out. We've got a long list of sub brands that we want to start targeting with our digital marketing. But that's how the name came up with. That's how we came up
Interesting.
with the name, and it was a long process. Good branding can be a long process.
And I love the do it or don't, right? Is
Yeah,
that what he said? That's great.
he
That,
said do it or don't, and it was one of those things where I'm like, he is absolutely right.
yeah, that's a really good phrase to remember. So what kind of problem do you solve for businesses?
So I would say the thing that I specialize in is thinking strategically with a technical approach to both design and branding, as well as development, programming, and digital marketing. There are a lot of people in this service area, and there's a lot of great people. I've worked with a lot of great people. Um, there's not quite as many people that have been in like the weeds of what I would consider that kind of work, where it's like really deep strategical problem solving for that sort of stuff. There's a lot of problems with, say, websites that people don't even know is a problem, and some of them are difficult to solve. Um,
So what's a clue that somebody might have a problem that they don't know?
Probably my favorite one, the first thing I look at when I look at someone's website is their mobile responsiveness. Now, more and more websites are mobile responsive these days. Chances are, I mean, if your site is not mobile responsive, it's a problem. Most traffic is from phones these days. Um, but the difference is you might see a site that is sort of mobile responsive. It works on the phone, but it's not easy to use on the phone.
Mhm.
So that's where user experience comes in. For example, I go to a lot of sites and you're scrolling on your phone and you can scroll left or right because something's broken
Yeah.
in the layout,
Mhm.
and they don't know. And that's a problem I fix for every site that I build. Like I check every device. I have a testing tool that checks every operating system, that checks every browser, that checks every screen size, and I go through and meticulously make sure that this looks good everywhere. I don't get all of them. Some people still use old browsers. Some people use
Mhm.
weird operating systems, but you know, many people who build websites don't even check that many things. They look on their screen, they look on their phone, like looks good for me, and then that's enough.
Yeah.
Um,
So collective wisdom is for entrepreneurs. There it's for business owners to come together and get answers. And I love answers I hear from members about what motivated them to start their company. Sometimes it's I hated my boss and I could do this. Just as smart as they are. What motivated you to break off and start your company?
so I am actually in the reverse of I hated my boss. I consider the field that I ended up in as, I don't want to say a lottery ticket, but it's somewhat like a lottery ticket. Um, the creative agencies are some of the best companies that you can work for. I have good relationships with all my old employers, but the truth is, I've been an entrepreneur right out of the gate when I was a teenager. My first job was at a small startup in tech while I was still in high school. We were selling they were providing they were selling cameras and security systems and installations, that sort of thing. The company was called East Coast Technology.
Mhm.
So it was they came to my school. They were looking for people to work for them.
So they
um,
recruited you guys.
they recruited me specifically. I had already and the reason was I had started building websites in middle school. It was a passion of mine. I did it for all of my hobbies. It wasn't a work thing for me. It was something I really enjoyed doing. I liked the challenge. I used to make some games, some animations, and it was just a cool way to escape and spend my time. I was really lucky that I got to get a good start right out the gate because it sort of ended up building a resume. East Coast Tech went under. It was also another young guy in business, a few years older than me, but that was kind of the start of me.
I gave you your spark. Yeah, like
Yeah, and actually, I
mhm.
want to probably the person that has motivated me the most. I want to shout out to two people
Sure.
actually. The first one is Manir Bahar of Core Community. He's a big guy in the business community. I met him in my early 20s. He does a lot of nonprofits. He runs a community health center, free martial arts for kids. He's currently building a business center
Hmm.
in East Baltimore, in a much needed neighborhood of East Baltimore. I met him in my early 20s, and he's probably done more to shape my mindset as as an, as an entrepreneur. He, even with all the struggles of being in that space, has continued to do it with exacting discipline for a long time.
Hmm.
So he like kind of spending time around with people that energy were like the risks are very high, but they're going to keep at it because they believe in the vision.
Hmm.
It was sort of hard to just settle in to 9 to 5, even 9 to 5 jobs that I liked. So this Up the Brand itself is actually my third go at business. So in my early 20s, it was GT Media Productions. And then around 2011, GT Tech Life, and now Up the Brand. The second one person I want to call out is my old business partner, Pablo Calvo, who is also, I partnered with him in a company called Plugin Group, who was a white label marketing services company. I left a government position to go do that with him. I took a pay cut and stability to go take that risk. This
Well,
something about
that's what entrepreneurs do, right?
I there are a lot of people that are very happy to collect a good salary
Yeah.
and find that stability. And I want to be clear, this isn't a rebuke on any of the jobs I've had. Some were better than others. Some were really great. Some were really good companies, but it was still like I had that thirst to
Mhm.
help small businesses and to take the risk myself.
Yep.
Because it's been really cool with some of the companies that I've worked with. Like there was a hookah lounge in my 20s that I saw them go from like this little lounge to like at a certain point they had like three locations.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
signs looked good, their menus looked good, and they eventually sold it and went to do other things. But watching a company have really good stuff and then watching it start to work,
Mhm.
that's really rewarding.
Mhm.
That's really rewarding.
So you've had a long career as young as you are. You've had a long career in entrepreneurship
I'm
and it,
33, believe it or not. Some people don't believe me when I say that.
let's just say I wish I was 33 again. So what would be a lesson that you can look back and just really sticks in your head that you want to share with other entrepreneurs that you've a lesson learned?
um, Focus on what you can offer rather than what you do. In other words, and I won't call anybody out, but I was probably the most guilty of this. My entrepreneurship in my 20s was very egocentric, which was like, I do all this awesome stuff. I'm the best. You have to pay me the most. And some of the experience that I had there was one of the things where it was like, are these actually getting results for the customers? And um, I mean, you still should be paid for your time. You still should be, but think about the type of problem that you want to solve and think about the ways you can actually improve what they're doing. A concept and an idea and an approach to a thing that doesn't work. It might look good, it might work really well. In my case, I might have spent an inordinate amount of time in the technical weeds, but did it actually help the
Mhm.
business grow?
Mhm.
Did you provide a service that actually improved the life of the person you were servicing? It was a hard
Mhm.
lesson to learn because sometimes you got to take yourself out of it. And some people never do.
Yeah.
But
That's a
that's
that's a insightful lesson that I think any entrepreneur, no matter industry or business, can learn from. So that comes from experience. You don't teach that stuff in a book.
no.
Yeah, that comes from experience. So just wondering, and this might actually just tie into what you just said, but what kind of business development or marketing tip could you share? One of the things that I always see as a trend in our meetings at Collective Wisdom is questions around how do I find more business, or how do I market myself better. So being in branding and marketing, digital marketing, I just wanted to ask you, what are some business development tips that you have?
So, to use a technical term, in my industry, we have something that's called split testing, which is where we try different pieces of content or try different approaches. I think you should split test your different pulls where you're pulling in new business. What was surprising to me, and it was one of the things I liked joining your mastermind group and some of the networking groups I'm now part of. I was putting some digital marketing out there, and digital marketing is tough. It's actually the average number of times that you see a brand is 7 times someone actually buys. It's a long tail process, and it can be an expensive process. I've actually been getting, as important as that stuff is, doing some of this face to face networking has produced more results more quickly than when I was trying to spend time
Yeah.
building on this brand. Again, this is a new lesson. I actually created a board. I'm like, what are all the ways that I'm trying to get new customers? Um, so rather than just like focusing on the way that you've done it, try a few different ways and don't stick with it. If something's not working, you can kind of move on to a different strategy,
and
but
and
actually lay them out and
yeah,
count them and see what is producing results and what isn't.
and in my experience, digital marketing is a lot of psychology, and just changing a picture in the ad could make it skyrocket. So that's why I guess the split testing that you're talking about is so
Yeah.
important. Just run and one ad. Let's say your budget's $500, so you take 250 of it, run one ad with one picture, another ad with another picture, or same picture, different words. Whatever you want to test. But yeah, that's a great tip, because you'd be surprised at how one might bomb and the other is doing great, and the only thing that's different is the title in the ad,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
um so it's yeah, that is a great
And
that is a great
and
tip.
there's split testing on the content and digital marketing side, but I was kind of even expanding more of that, like split test different audience pools,
Hmm.
attend some right now I'm doing cold emailing. I'm doing I don't like to do cold calls, but I've talked to enough people like you've got to try doing a cold call. Like start doing that. So I started implementing a system for that. And that's the other thing. Create some systems, create a process that's repeatable.
Hmm.
Because if the business actually does do well, you might have to teach this to somebody else.
So interesting you bring that up, Gary, because our next meeting, what was the thing I want everybody to talk about, was their sales processes. So you're absolutely right, that processes and things that if you hire a sales person, they can come in and take right over and
Yeah,
with where you stop. So to finish out our interview today, and I do appreciate your time, and it's been fun, and we are live. So if my dog starts barking, I can't help it. Yeah,
good problem to have.
yeah, exactly. Tell us a fun fact about Gary Thorn.
So, and it's actually one of the ways that once we connected on Facebook, I noticed we have three mutual friends, and all three of them were musicians. And I was like, that's kind of fun. There was a period of time in my 20s, late 20s, even early 30s, I was going to about 100 concerts a year. Not big arena shows,
Hmm.
although there were some of those, mostly local events, mostly local music, um, in every different genre, rock, hip hop, indie, folk, uh, blues, some jazz, not all jazz. I would get around a lot, and I would just randomly pick a show. I would go to shows that I didn't know anyone on the bill, and that some of those were some of the best shows that I've ever seen. And I most people love music, but a lot of people don't know that. For example, here in Baltimore, like, yeah, you could go to the arena show, you could spend $500 for a ticket, and a lot of those are good shows. I've been to them, but also you could go down to a bar in Fells Point on a Tuesday and go see the Cat's Eye Pub, or go to Admiral's Cup and see someone amazing in front of a crowd of 5 people, and
Yeah,
sometimes 50 people. But like, trust me, the best musician you've ever seen is someone you don't know yet. I
that's
include
interesting.
myself in that.
Oh, are you what do you play, Gary?
I am not a musician. I mean, the
Oh,
best
okay.
musician I've ever seen is definitely someone I have not
You
seen
haven't
yet.
seen yet.
I
Yeah.
don't know their name. I've just been shocked on a regular basis seeing things like I said, some of the times the best ones are in the most empty shows, which is unfortunate. But that's a marketing and branding issue, not so
Yeah.
much. But yeah, there's if you like music, there's a really great scene here in Baltimore for a lot of different types of music.
Well, hopefully, post-COVID pandemic, we can all get back out there and meet up, and maybe I'll see you at a show, Gary.
That'd be great.
That'd be fun.
You'll definitely see me at a show. I might get back to like 5 or 6 days a week for at least the first few months.
Very good. Well, really appreciate you helping us kick this series off. Once again, this is brought to you by Collective Wisdom, which is a masterminds program Gary is part of. And you will be meeting our members one a month. So tune in and watch for this every month. And Gary, we really appreciate your insight and your experience and your interesting story. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Kathleen, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Okay, have a great day.
You too.
Okay, take care.